Welcome to the Mystery and History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Throughout history, some families did everything they could to keep power, bloodline, faith, or tradition within their own group. In ancient kingdoms, European dynasties, isolated islands, and closed communities, alliances between close relatives were seen as strategy, custom, or even a sacred duty. But as generations passed, these choices left deep marks. Fragile heirs, rare conditions, internal disputes, genetic mysteries, and stories that changed the fate of entire empires. In this video, you will discover 25 families and communities marked by extreme kinship ties, from pharaohs and European kings to remote islands and groups that still exist today. And by the end, you will realize that these stories are not only about genetics, but about power, isolation, survival, and the consequences of trying to preserve a lineage at any cost. The Fugate family drew attention for having a rare inherited condition called methemoglobinemia, which gives the skin a bluish tone. This trait began in the early 19th century with Martin Fugate, a French immigrant who settled in the isolated Troublesome Creek Valley in the Kentucky Appalachians, where he married a woman who also carried the responsible recessive variation. Geographic isolation and family alliances within the same community over generations helped keep this trait present. Medicine became aware of the case with the birth of Benji Stacy in 1975, whose skin tone caught the attention of professionals until it was analyzed by a local hematologist who identified methemoglobinemia and used a simple treatment with methylene blue. The Fugate case shows how inherited and social factors combined with isolation can produce uncommon traits and challenges for medical recognition in remote populations. The Whitaker family has lived for generations in an isolated valley near Odd, West Virginia, in a mountainous Appalachian region marked by geographic isolation. This condition, combined with repeated family alliances within the same community, contributed to low inherited diversity and to different health and developmental limitations among some of its members, a situation recorded in 2020 by photographer Mark Leta in a documentary about isolated families in the United States. The story reveals the challenges faced in remote rural communities, such as economic difficulties and limited access to medical and social services, factors that can prolong vulnerability across generations. The Whitaker case renews the debate over how geographic and social conditions influence public health and quality of life, showing the impact of environment and family history on entire communities. Charles II of Spain, born in 1661, was the last monarch of the Habsburg dynasty, which ruled much of Europe for almost 4 centuries. The family promoted marriage alliances between close relatives in an attempt to keep power within the clan, a practice linked to inherited changes known as the Habsburg jaw. Charles II faced many physical limitations, including an unusual jaw formation that made chewing difficult, reproductive difficulties, reduced mobility, and speech problems, taking years to learn how to walk. A recent study indicated that his degree of family relatedness was extremely high, which helps explain his fragile health and lack of heirs. His passing in 1700 ended the Spanish Habsburg line and triggered the War of the Spanish Succession, which reshaped Europe's political balance. The case of Charles II illustrates the consequences of extreme family alliances in royal families. The Amish community of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, is made up of descendants of a few hundred Swiss and German immigrants who arrived in the United States in the 18th century and maintained strict social and religious isolation. The preference for marriage within the community resulted in a high incidence of uncommon inherited conditions, such as Ellis Van Creveld syndrome, associated with short stature and different formations of the fingers, traits rarely found outside this group. To meet the specific needs of these families, the Clinic for Special Children was founded in 1989, specializing in identifying and following these conditions common among Amish and Mennonites in the region. The initiative reflects a meaningful commitment to the well-being of this closed group, facing medical challenges related to genetic and cultural isolation and forming an important example of specialized care in restricted community settings. The House of Habsburg, an influential European dynasty with deep roots in Austria, adopted a strict policy of marriage alliances between first- and second-degree relatives during the 16th and 17th centuries to strengthen political agreements and preserve territorial unity. This family strategy aimed to guarantee the consolidation of power without dividing the domains, but it brought major consequences for the health of its members. A genealogical study published in 2009 by the journal PLOS ONE analyzed 20 generations of the family and showed a steady rise in the average degree of relatedness during this period, linking it to lower childhood survival and reproductive difficulties. The repetition of this pattern across several branches of the dynasty showed the inherited impact of marriage strategies focused on maintaining power, revealing that political decisions deeply influenced the longevity and continuity of the Habsburg lineage in Europe. Tutankhamun is one of the most iconic figures of ancient Egypt, known both for passing away while still young and for the splendor of his tomb, discovered almost untouched in 1922 by archaeologist Howard Carter. DNA studies published in 2010 indicated that his parents had an extremely close degree of relatedness, which may be linked to the physical changes identified in his remains, such as bone difficulties, an unusual formation in one of his feet, and signs of a serious infection. These factors suggest that low inherited diversity contributed to his fragile health and to the end of his life at 19 years old, as well as the early loss of his two descendants. The discovery of his tomb was a milestone in archaeology, providing a rare glimpse into royal life and the religious beliefs of the 14th century before Christ, and revealing important details about the dynasty and Egyptian society of the time. Akhenaten, pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt, is known not only for his religious revolution in promoting worship centered on the god Aten, but also for marriage practices that differ from modern social standards, such as his union with Nefertiti and possible alliances with close members of his own royal family. This tradition, seen as a way to preserve the divine nature of the pharaoh, considered a direct descendant of the gods, created a sequence of unions within the same lineage over several generations. Genetic studies point to Akhenaten as a central figure in this cycle, while his unusual physical traits, shown in statues and reliefs, including highly stylized body proportions, are interpreted in different ways by specialists. Some researchers link these representations to the artistic style of the period, while others consider possible inherited factors. His story reveals the cultural and religious complexities of ancient Egypt and the challenges faced by his dynasty. Ptolemy II Philadelphus was a pharaoh of Egypt who ruled during the 3rd century before Christ and became known for establishing a dynastic union with Arsinoe II, a direct member of his royal family, a practice unusual even by the Hellenistic standards of the time. By adopting the title Philadelphus, linked to the idea of family affection, he sought to strengthen his political and divine legitimacy, moving closer to the model of the Egyptian gods Osiris and Isis, known for their family and marital bond. This royal propaganda strategy aimed to bring the Ptolemaic dynasty closer to Egyptian religious tradition, consolidating its power over the native population. Arsinoe II played an influential role in the kingdom's politics and was venerated to the point that temples built in her name preserved her authority even after her passing. This family alliance showed the cultural blending between Greeks and Egyptians and marked the Ptolemaic dynasty with a strong religious and political identity based on the divine nature of its rulers. The Ptolemaic dynasty ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries until Cleopatra VII, adopting marriage alliances among direct members of the royal family as a policy to strengthen power and preserve the succession of the pharaohs. Cleopatra, the last queen of this Macedonian dynasty, was officially joined to Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV, her co-rulers, following a dynastic tradition meant to avoid sharing the throne with outside families and to maintain the continuity of the royal house. Although this practice strengthened royal authority, it caused internal disputes and political instability, weakening unity at court and creating constant rivalries among its members. Even so, Cleopatra stood out for her intelligence, political skill, and good health, strengthening her influence in Egypt and the Hellenistic world. Her diplomacy and charisma allowed her to keep control during a delicate moment that came before the end of the dynasty and Egypt's annexation by the Roman Empire. Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom was a central figure not only because of the length of her long reign in the 19th century, but also because of her inherited influence on European history. She carried a rare genetic variation related to blood clotting, known at the time as the blue disease, which was passed on to some of her 9 children. This inherited condition spread through different royal families of Europe, including the houses of Spain, Russia, and Germany, because of marriage alliances among the queen's descendants. The trait had a direct impact on historical events, as in the case of Tsarevich Alexei, Victoria's grandson, whose health required constant care and influenced political decisions at the Russian court, contributing to the growing tension that came before the 1917 revolution. In this way, the Queen's genetic inheritance went beyond the borders of the United Kingdom and became tied to important European social and political moments. Alexei Romanov, born in 1904 as the only son of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra, had an inherited condition that marked the history of the Russian monarchy, a serious difficulty with blood clotting. Inherited from his great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, this trait meant that even small injuries required intense care, leading the imperial family to keep the situation secret to preserve the image of the throne during the social changes of the early 20th century. Alexei's health opened the door to the influence of the monk Grigory Rasputin, whose supposed ability to ease the episodes faced by the heir won the trust of the imperial couple, but created distrust among part of the population, who saw his presence as harmful to the stability of the court. Alexei's delicate condition symbolized the vulnerability of the government, which ended in 1917 along with the Romanov dynasty, permanently changing Russia's fate. The Bourbon dynasty in Spain began in 1700 with its rise to the throne after the passing of Charles II, the last monarch of the Habsburg family. Although they promised renewal, the Bourbons quickly resumed marriage alliances between relatives, such as cousins, repeating practices that had marked the decline of the rival dynasty. Alfonso XII, joined to his first cousin, faced important inherited consequences, visible in the fragile health of his descendants and in his own weakness, which contributed to the end of his life at 27 years old, possibly worsened by a respiratory condition. In the 20th century, the union of Alfonso XIII with the British Victoria Eugenie diversified part of the lineage, but introduced an inherited blood clotting condition into the Spanish royal family. This panorama reveals how ties among European ruling elites influenced Spain's health and political history for centuries. Ludwig II of Bavaria rose to the throne in 1864 at 18 years old, standing out for his eccentric behavior and his preference for social isolation, traits that marked his reign during the 19th century. A member of the House of Wittelsbach, which ruled Bavaria for more than 7 centuries, Ludwig grew up in a tradition of marriage alliances between relatives used to maintain the family's political and territorial unity. He invested great fortunes in the construction of lavish castles, the most famous being Neuschwanstein, now a symbol of German architectural romanticism. In 1886, amid doubts about his administrative ability and emotional state, a medical board ordered his removal from government. A few days later, his passing was recorded under still unclear circumstances, feeding speculation about his condition and about what truly happened at that moment. His life blends mystery, art, and politics, reflecting the challenges faced by European monarchies amid the social changes of the time. Huayna Capac was one of the last great rulers of the Inca Empire, governing in the early 16th century, shortly before the arrival of the Spanish conquerors who would transform South America. As was customary among the Inca elite, he established a dynastic union with a direct member of his family, the Coya, following a tradition meant to preserve the continuity of the solar lineage, considered divine in origin and essential for legitimizing the power of the Sapa Inca. This family alliance was seen as a sacred rule that reinforced the continuity of authority and social order within the empire. However, with the Spanish conquest and the political breakdown of the Inca state, this ancient tradition was abruptly abandoned, symbolizing the deep rupture caused by colonization. The story of Huayna Capac shows both the complexity of Inca customs and the difficulties faced by his civilization in the face of European expansion. Kaahumanu was a central figure in 19th century Hawaiian nobility, descended from the Ni'aupio lineage, which represented the highest level of prestige and spiritual power in the archipelago's traditional hierarchy. This status was reserved for descendants of alliances made between very close members of royalty, whose family heritage was believed to transmit powerful mana, or spiritual force. Because of this, these children received highly reverent treatment from birth, reinforcing the authority and sacred nature of Hawaiian leadership. Kaahumanu not only embodied this privileged lineage, but was also an influential queen who took part in major political and cultural transformations in Hawaii, especially during the process of westernization. The Ni'aupio tradition, fundamental to the pre-colonial social structure, lost ground under outside pressures and the changes brought by the arrival of missionaries and colonizers, marking the decline of old practices and hierarchies. Cambyses II, ruler of the Achaemenid Empire in the 6th century before Christ, stood out for an uncommon and controversial marriage practice. He established official alliances with Atossa and Roxana, direct members of his family, going against Persian traditions of the time. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, to legitimize these unions before the court, the king supposedly consulted the royal judges, who granted an unusual legal exception, stating that the monarch had absolute authority to decide his own marriages. The image of Cambyses passed down by Herodotus is that of an unpredictable and harsh ruler, although modern scholars believe Greek accounts may have exaggerated or distorted these traits for political reasons, since rivalry between Persians and Greeks influenced historical writing. In any case, the episode shows the complexities of royal power in the Achaemenid period and the tensions between traditional norms and monarchical authority, reflecting important aspects of ancient Persian government and culture. The Merovingian dynasty marked the beginnings of medieval France, ruling between the 5th and 8th centuries with an administration based on dividing lands among direct heirs, which created fragmentation and political weakening. To avoid the breakup of the kingdom, Merovingian kings established marriage alliances with close female relatives, especially first cousins, seeking to reunite divided territories and strengthen family ties. This strategy, however, did not prevent internal rivalries, which led to frequent power struggles and instability. Later, historians used a disparaging expression to describe some of these rulers, reflecting the perception of political weakening and loss of monarchical control. Despite scarce and contradictory records, the Merovingian dynasty shows the difficulties of building French national unity and the complex relationship between kinship, power, and territory in the early Middle Ages. Charles Darwin and Emma Wedgwood, first cousins, married in 1839, continuing a tradition that linked the Darwin and Wedgwood families through pottery business and scientific interests. During the marriage, 3 of their 10 descendants did not reach adulthood, while others had ongoing health conditions. This made Darwin concerned about the effects of marriage alliances between relatives, motivating him to investigate the inherited impacts of these unions in plants and animals. In 2010, a genetic study reconstructed the couple's family tree and identified a possible link between the high degree of relatedness and lower childhood survival within the family. The work highlights a careful scientific analysis of human inherited diversity, showing the possible effects of these unions and the personal and scientific challenge Darwin faced while exploring the traits of his own family origins. Old colony Mennonite groups migrated from Canada and Russia to isolated regions of Latin America in the early 20th century, settling in Mexico, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Belize. Maintaining strict social and religious closure, these communities restricted their marriages almost exclusively to their own group, including alliances between families with shared ancestors, which raised the incidence of uncommon inherited metabolic conditions among descendants. Genetic research carried out in colonies in Bolivia and Mexico identified high rates of recessive traits, drawing the attention of health authorities. Newborn screening programs were introduced to recognize these conditions early and offer proper follow-up care. This phenomenon shows the challenges faced by groups that preserve their cultural identity while dealing with the limits of isolation and low genetic diversity, with effects on the community's health and longevity. The Hutterites are a religious and ethnic group that originated in Central Europe in the 16th century, migrated to North America, and established isolated farming colonies in the United States and Canada. Living in closed communities, they maintained strict social practices and rarely marry outside their own group. With an initial population of only a few hundred families, the roughly 50,000 Hutterites today are largely descended from the same ancestors, making them one of the most genetically homogeneous groups in North America. This inherited uniformity attracts scientific interest because researchers use it to study allergies and traits related to immune system function, separating environmental factors from inherited factors. The history of the Hutterites reveals a unique way of life based on agricultural cooperation and cultural preservation that has endured for almost 5 centuries. This longevity and homogeneity have contributed to important advances in the genetic understanding of these traits. The Samaritan community, heir to one of the oldest religions still practiced, includes about 800 people on Mount Gerizim in the West Bank and in Holon, Israel. Traditionally, its members follow strict rules that restrict marriage to the community itself, which contributed to high rates of uncommon inherited conditions because of limited genetic diversity. To face these challenges, religious leaders have allowed, since the 1990s, unions with Jewish women who convert to the Samaritan faith, seeking to broaden the group's genetic variety. Israeli scientists monitor the effects of these changes on the community's health. Despite the difficulties, the Samaritans preserve ancient traditions and represent an example of cultural resistance and adaptation in the Middle East. Their history shows the challenges faced by small religious populations seeking balance between identity, cultural continuity, and collective well-being. Pingalap Atoll in Micronesia became known worldwide for an uncommon inherited condition present in its population, linked to a powerful typhoon in 1775 that reduced the number of inhabitants to fewer than 20. Among the survivors was the local chief, who carried a genetic variation associated with complete achromatopsia, a condition that prevents color perception, greatly increases sensitivity to light, and limits vision to shades of gray. Over the generations, this variation became frequent because of the founder effect, causing about 10% of current inhabitants to have this trait, an incidence thousands of times higher than the global average. Neurologist Oliver Sacks documented the phenomenon in his book about color perception in the archipelago. highlighting Pingelap as a unique example for the study of population genetics and human adaptations to environmental and social challenges. Tristan da Cunha is considered the most isolated inhabited island in the world, located in the South Atlantic and belonging to the United Kingdom. Settled in the early 19th century by a few families, its population has never risen above a few hundred people because of geographic isolation and difficult access. This contributed to the high frequency of uncommon inherited conditions such as retinitis pigmentosa, which causes a gradual reduction in vision. Since the mid-20th century, British researchers have studied the genetic traits of the population, currently made up of about 250 people, almost all descended from 8 founding families. The island became a unique case for understanding the impact of isolation and restricted ancestry on human genetics. Beyond the geographic and health-related challenges, the inhabitants preserved their own culture and a very close community life, strengthened by shared history. Pitcairn Island, in the South Pacific, became known after 1790, when 9 former crew members of the British ship HMS Bounty took refuge there with a small group of Tahitians, forming an isolated community. This initial population, made up of only a few founding families, faced major social challenges because of isolation and the limited number of possible partners, resulting in family alliances within the group throughout the 19th century. As a result, the inhabitants' inherited diversity remained very limited, a situation confirmed by modern studies that point to a restricted genetic pool. The surnames Christian and Young, inherited from the original crew members, remain common among the little more than 50 residents. This demographic situation made Pitcairn a unique case of population isolation, whose difficulties and internal dynamics reflect the complexity of human survival in remote communities since the 18th century. Sultan Ibrahim I, ruler of the Ottoman Empire during the 17th century, became known both for his reign and for his unpredictable behavior, often linked to the isolation imposed by the Kafes system in the imperial harem of Istanbul. In this arrangement, princes remained in reserved areas of the palace with extremely limited outside social contact until the moment of succession, which drastically reduced their relationships and marriage options. Although alliances between direct members of the same family were forbidden, unions with cousins and distant relatives became common because of restricted life inside the closed environment of the harem. This policy of family control aimed to secure power, but contributed to emotional difficulties, as suggested by accounts about Ibrahim I, whose irregular conduct marked a turbulent phase of Ottoman history. The Kafes symbolizes the tensions between political strategy and personal well-being, reflecting the challenges of succession in absolutist dynasties. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.